The stagecoach rattled to a stop, sending a cloud of dust billowing across the lone street of Los Alamos, New Mexico territory. Sophia Keller gripped the hands of the three children beside her, their small faces pinched with exhaustion and anxiety after the grueling journey west. Her own heart hammered against her ribs as she peered through the grimy window at what would be their new home if the man waiting for her would still have her once he saw the unexpected additions to their arrangement. "Remember what I told you," she whispered to the children. "Best behavior." "Let me do the talking." 10-year-old Mary nodded solemnly, her thin shoulders squared with a determination that broke Sophia's heart. 8-year-old Thomas clutched a worn teddy bear while little Emma, barely 5, simply stared with wide, uncertain eyes. "Madam," the driver opened the door. "Los Alamos, end of the line." Sophia took a deep breath and stepped down into the bright afternoon sunlight, helping the children one by one. The main street was modest, a general store, saloon, small church, and a scattering of wooden buildings stretching into the distance. But what captured her attention was the tall figure standing by the hitching post, hat in hands, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. Vincent Miller was not what she had expected. His letters had been terse, practical, a man seeking a wife to tend his home, cook his meals, and perhaps provide companionship in the lonely prairie nights. They had not prepared her for the weathered face with kind eyes, the broad shoulders, or the way he seemed momentarily frozen in place as she approached with the children in tow. "Mr. Miller," she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. He nodded, his gaze moving from her face to the children and back again. "Miss Keller," he replied, his voice deep and rough like he didn't use it often. I wasn't expecting." Sophia lifted her chin. "I understand this comes as a surprise. These children were orphaned on our journey. Their parents, friends of mine, died of fever 2 weeks into our travel. I couldn't leave them. I won't leave them." Her voice caught, but she pushed on. "If this changes our arrangement, I understand. We can find lodging in town until my house needs filling," Vincent said simply, cutting through her nervous explanation. "I'm sorry." He looked at the children again, his expression softening. "Been too quiet for too long. A house ain't a home without voices in it." He knelt down to the children's level. "I'm Vincent. Folks call me Vince. I've got a small ranch about 2 miles from town, plenty of room for growing legs to run." Mary stepped forward, ever the protector. "Do you have cows, sir?" A smile cracked through his weathered features. 26 head of cattle, 4 horses, chickens enough to wake the dead every morning, and a dog named Rusty who's been needing some company besides an old cowboy. Thomas's eyes widened at the mention of the dog. "Can we play with him?" "Reckon he'd be mighty disappointed if you didn't," Vincent replied, then stood to address Sophia again. "I've got the wagon. It's not much, but it'll get us home. We can come back for your trunks tomorrow." "We don't have much," Sophia admitted. "Just those 2 cases and the small trunk." Vincent nodded, something like respect flickering in his eyes. "Then we'll manage just fine today." He turned toward his wagon, then paused. "Miss Keller, I know this isn't what either of us planned, but maybe it's better." The simple words loosened something tight in Sophia's chest. She'd spent the journey west preparing for rejection, for the possibility that the man she'd agreed to marry might turn her away upon seeing her with 3 orphan children. Yet here he was, accepting them all with a gentle word and the promise of a home. "Thank you," she whispered, and for the first time in weeks, she felt hope bloom within her. Vincent helped them into the wagon, careful with little Emma who stared at him with solemn curiosity. The ride to the ranch was quiet at first, the children too overwhelmed by the vast open spaces and the towering mountains in the distance to speak. "Have you been in Los Alamos long?" Sophia asked, breaking the silence. 8 years, Vincent replied, eyes on the dusty road ahead. "Came out after the war, needed space to breathe." He didn't elaborate on which war, but the set of his shoulders told her enough. "It's beautiful country," she offered, "harsh but fair, gives back what you put into it." He glanced at her. "Your letter said you were from Philadelphia?" "Yes. I taught at girls' school there, but after my parents passed last year." She trailed off, aware of little ears listening. "It seemed time for a change," Vincent nodded. "Teaching's valuable out here, not many with proper learning. The children need schooling," she said, seizing the opening. I can teach them, and perhaps others, if there's interest in town. Town's growing. Sheriff's got 2 girls of his own, and the blacksmith's wife just had their 4th. Be good to have someone who knows letters and numbers better than most of us do. As they crested a small rise, Vincent's ranch came into view. A modest but well-maintained house stood proudly against the backdrop of red-tinged cliffs, with a barn, corral, and several outbuildings arranged nearby. A creek cut through the property, lined with cottonwoods offering welcome shade. "It's not much," Vincent said, a note of apology in his voice. "It's wonderful," Sophia breathed, meaning it. After the cramped tenements of Philadelphia, the space and openness felt like freedom. As the wagon pulled up to the house, a copper-colored dog came bounding out, barking joyously. Thomas and Emma squealed in delight while Mary maintained her careful dignity, though her eyes shone with interest. "That's Rusty," Vincent said unnecessarily, a smile warming his features. "Best cattle dog in the territory, though don't tell him that. He's vain enough already." The dog circled the wagon, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. When Vincent helped the children down, Rusty approached cautiously, sniffing each child before offering a friendly lick to Thomas's outstretched hand. "He likes us," Emma declared, her first words since their arrival. "Smart dog," Vincent replied, helping Sophia down last. His hand was calloused but gentle, and she felt a curious flutter when their eyes met briefly. "Let me show you all inside." The house was simple but surprisingly comfortable. A large main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a solid table, several chairs, and a small sofa near the hearth. 2 doors led off to bedrooms, and a loft space above offered additional sleeping quarters. "I built on the 2nd bedroom last year," Vincent explained, showing them the smaller room with a single bed. "Figured I might need it someday. The loft can be fixed up proper for the young'uns. It's rough now, but we can arrange it however suits." Sophia felt tears threatening. His matter-of-fact acceptance of their situation, his quiet accommodation of needs he hadn't anticipated when he'd sent for a bride, it was more than she had dared hope for. "Mr. Miller, Vince, please." He looked uncomfortable with formality. "Vince. I don't know how to thank you for your kindness. I know this isn't what you expected when you wrote for a wife." He studied her for a long moment. "Miss Keller, Sophia." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Sophia, life out here doesn't often go according to plan. You learn to adapt or you don't survive." He glanced toward the children who were already exploring the main room under Rusty's watchful eye. "Those little ones need a home. I've got one that needs life in it. Seems simple enough to me." "I promise we won't be a burden," she said quickly. "I can cook, so keep house. I'll help with the garden and animals too once I learn how." "Never doubted it." His expression grew more serious. "But there's something we should discuss. Our arrangement was for marriage." Sophia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I understand if you'd prefer to delay, given the circumstances. Perhaps a period of adjustment to see if this can work for all of us." Vincent nodded slowly. "That's sensible. Give us all time to settle in." He hesitated. "Though for propriety's sake, folks in town might talk if I can stay in the children's room," she said quickly. "Until we decide." Relief and something like disappointment crossed his features. "That's settled then. Now you all must be hungry after your journey. Let me show you where everything is in the kitchen." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of activity. Vincent showed Sophia the pantry, well-stocked with basics, and the pump that brought cool water right into the house, a luxury she hadn't expected. He helped bring in their sparse luggage and showed the children where the outhouse was located. As she prepared a simple supper of beans, bacon, and cornbread, Sophia watched Vincent with the children. He was awkward but gentle, answering Thomas's endless questions about ranch life with remarkable patience. Mary remained reserved, but Emma had already attached herself to the tall cowboy, following him like a shadow as he did his evening chores. "He has a good heart," Mary said quietly, coming to stand beside Sophia at the stove. "Yes, he does," Sophia agreed, surprised by the child's perceptiveness. "Mama and Papa would approve," the girl continued, her voice catching slightly on her parents' names. Sophia pulled Mary close, kissing the top of her head. "I believe they would." That evening, after a hearty meal that saw even shy Thomas asking for seconds, Vincent brought out a battered checkerboard. "Anyone know how to play?" Mary's hand shot up. "Papa taught me." "Well then," Vincent said, setting up the pieces, "let's see what you can do." Watching them play by lamplight, Vincent deliberately making mistakes that Mary caught with triumph, Sophia felt something warm unfurl in her chest. This wasn't the married life she had imagined when she answered his advertisement, but perhaps it could become something even better. Later, with the children finally asleep in the loft, Vincent had quickly arranged 3 comfortable pallets for them. Sophia sat at the kitchen table, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. "Tea." Vincent appeared with 2 steaming mugs, placing one before her. "Thank you." She wrapped her hands around the warmth. "For everything." He sat across from her, his large frame making the chair look small. "Those children have been through a lot." "Yes," she sipped her tea. "James and Catherine Monroe, their parents were good people. We traveled together from Philadelphia. Catherine taught at the school with me when they both fell ill so suddenly." She swallowed hard. "I promised I'd care for the children. I couldn't abandon them." "You did right," Vincent said firmly. "Children need stability, especially after loss. Did you grow up with that?" She asked, curious about this quiet man who had opened his home so willingly. A shadow passed over his face. "Lost my ma when I was 6. Pa did his best, but he wasn't cut out to raise a boy alone. Worked us both to the bone on a failing farm in Missouri." "I'm sorry," Vincent shrugged. "Made me who I am, taught me what matters." He hesitated. "What about you? Your letters didn't say much beyond teaching." Sophia traced the rim of her mug. "My father was a bookkeeper. Mother helped run a millinery shop. Comfortable life, not wealthy. They believed in education, so I was fortunate." She paused. "When they died of influenza last year, there wasn't much left after debts. The school where I taught was cutting staff. I saw your advertisement and thought. You thought trading letters with a stranger and traveling across the country might be better than staying," he finished for her. "Something like that," she admitted. "Though now I've brought you more than you bargained for." Vincent's eyes, amber in the lamplight, held hers. "Sometimes the best things in life are what you never saw coming." The simple wisdom of his words stayed with Sophia long after they bid each other good night. As she lay in the small bedroom, listening to the unfamiliar night sounds of the prairie, she wondered what tomorrow would bring for this unexpected family they were forming. Dawn arrived with the promised crowing of roosters and the gentle lowing of cattle. Sophia rose early, determined to prove her worth. She found Vincent already up, coffee brewing on the stove. "Morning," he greeted her. "Sleep well." "Better than on the stagecoach," she replied with a smile. "The children are still asleep. They need the rest." Vincent nodded. "I've got morning chores. Thought I might show you and the young'uns around the property proper after breakfast if you're up to it." "We'd like that." Working side by side in the kitchen felt oddly natural, as if they'd done it for years rather than hours. Vincent moved with surprising grace for such a large man, deftly avoiding collisions as they prepared breakfast. By the time the children clambered down from the loft, eyes wide with the novelty of their surroundings, a hearty meal of flapjacks and eggs awaited them. "Can we see the cows today?" Thomas asked through a mouthful of food. "Mind your manners," Sophia reminded gently. Vincent smiled. "We'll see the whole place. Cows, horses, chickens, even the vegetable garden, though it needs a woman's touch, I reckon." "I've never had a garden," Sophia admitted, "but I'm willing to learn." "Martha Wilson in town has the best garden in the territory. She'd be happy to advise, I'm sure." After breakfast, Vincent took them on a tour of the ranch. The property stretched further than Sophia had realized, with good grazing land running toward the foothills. The barn housed 2 working horses, a mare about to foal, and a gentle old gelding that Vincent suggested might be perfect for the children to learn riding on. "Really?" Mary's usual reserve cracked at the prospect. "We can learn to ride horses." "Can't live in New Mexico territory without knowing how to ride," Vincent replied, "though your ma will have final say on when you start lessons." Sophia felt a peculiar warmth at hearing him refer to her as the children's mother. She hadn't dared use the title herself yet, feeling it somehow disrespectful to Catherine's memory. But the natural way Vincent included them all in his plans, treating them as a family unit, eased something tight within her. The tour continued to the chicken coop, where Emma delighted in collecting still warm eggs in her small apron, and the vegetable garden that, despite Vincent's disparaging comments, showed care and attention. "You've done well with this," Sophia said, examining the neat rows of corn, beans, and squash. "These tomato plants are thriving." Vincent looked pleased at her praise. "Learned from the locals. This was a patchy land not so long ago. They knew what grows best here." As the day progressed, Sophia began to see the rhythm of ranch life unfold. Vincent had a methodical approach to his work, moving from task to task with quiet efficiency. When Thomas and Emma grew tired, he suggested they rest in the shade while he showed Sophia the creek that provided water for the property. "It runs year-round," he explained as they walked along its banks, the cottonwoods rustling overhead. "One of the reasons I chose this land. Even in drought years, we've had enough." "It's beautiful," Sophia said, admiring the clear water. "In Philadelphia, the only water we saw regularly was polluted from the factories." Vincent frowned. "No place for children?" "No," she agreed, "though I worry about their education out here." "Like I said, your teaching would be welcome in town. Perhaps we could arrange for you to hold classes a few days each week. There's a small building near the church that might serve." The casual we didn't escape her notice. He was already thinking of them as partners in this endeavor. "That would be wonderful," she said sincerely. "I'd hate to see the children's learning neglected, especially Mary. She has a quick mind." "Takes after her new ma, I'd guess," Vincent replied with a sidelong glance that made her blush. That evening, after the children were asleep, Vincent brought out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. "Medicinal purposes," he said with a hint of humor. "For discussing adult matters." Sophia accepted a small pour. "What matters did you have in mind?" "Practical ones." He settled into his chair. "Winter will be here in a few months. The children will need warm clothes, proper boots. The house might need adjustments to accommodate everyone comfortably." "I can sew," Sophia offered. "If you can get fabric from town, I can make what they need." Vincent nodded approvingly. "Good." "And there's the matter of our arrangement." Sophia tensed slightly. "Yes, we agreed to wait to let everyone adjust, but I think we should discuss what happens next." He took a careful sip of whiskey. "The children need stability, you need security, I need—" He paused. "What do you need, Vincent?" she asked softly. His eyes, when they met hers, held a vulnerability that surprised her. "Been alone a long time, chose it that way after the war. But seeing you all here these past days, hearing voices in the house, having someone to share the day's events with." He shook his head slightly. "Makes a man realize what he's been missing." Sophia's heart quickened. "Are you saying you still wish to marry?" "I'm saying I think it would be right for all of us," he replied carefully, "but only if you feel the same." "I've barely known you a day," she reminded him. Vincent's mouth quirked in a half-smile. "Were you planning to know me better through more letters while living under my roof?" The absurdity of it made her laugh. "I suppose not." She considered his words. "The children seem comfortable with you already. And you?" His question was gentle but direct. Sophia took a breath. "I find myself surprisingly at ease. You're not what I expected, Vincent Miller." "Is that good or bad?" "Good," she said decisively. "Very good." Relief crossed his features. "Then perhaps we shouldn't wait too long. Give the children the security of knowing this is permanent. Give the town less reason to gossip." "Are you proposing, Mr. Miller?" she asked, a teasing note entering her voice for the first time. Vincent set down his glass and reached across the table to take her hand. "Sophia Keller, I'm asking if you'll make this arrangement real. Marry me, help me raise those children, build a life here on this land." The simplicity and sincerity of his words touched her deeply. "Yes," she answered, surprising herself with how right it felt. "I will." His smile transformed his face, making him look younger, almost boyish. "We can speak to Reverend Carson on Sunday if that suits." "This Sunday?" Sophia's eyes widened. "That's only 3 days away. Too soon." She considered the question seriously. By conventional standards, it was absurdly quick, yet their situation was far from conventional. The children needed stability. Vincent needed a wife. She needed a home and security for the young ones in her care. No, she decided. Not too soon at all. The next 3 days passed in a flurry of preparation. Vincent took Sophia and the children into town, where they were met with friendly curiosity from the residents of Los Alamos. Martha Wilson, the garden expert Vincent had mentioned, immediately took Sophia under her wing, introducing her to the other women and promising to help with wedding preparations. "Not often we get a chance to celebrate out here," the older woman explained as she led Sophia toward the general store. "And those little ones are precious. This town needs more children." At the store, Vincent insisted on purchasing fabric for a wedding dress and new clothes for the children, waving away Sophia's protests. "I've had little enough to spend my earnings on all these years," he told her quietly. "Let me do this." The store owner's wife, Mrs. Patel, offered to help with the sewing. "My Nikhil runs the store, but my needle is faster than his inventory counting," she said with a laugh. "We can have you a simple wedding dress by Sunday." Word spread quickly through the small community. By the time they returned to the ranch that afternoon, 3 women had volunteered to prepare food for after the ceremony, and Sheriff Davis had offered to bring his fiddle for music. "I hope this isn't overwhelming you," Vincent said as they unloaded their purchases. The children were exploring the yard with Rusty, giving the adults a rare moment alone. "It's kind of everyone," Sophia replied honestly. "I didn't expect such a welcome." "Good people out here," Vincent said. "Have to be to survive, everyone depends on each other." That evening, as Vincent taught Thomas how to whittle a simple whistle from a piece of cedar, Sophia sat with Mary and Emma, explaining the upcoming wedding. "So Mr. Miller will be our pa now?" Emma asked, her small brow furrowed. "If that's what you'd like to call him," Sophia said carefully. "We don't have to decide everything right away." Mary, ever thoughtful, asked, "Does this mean we're staying here forever?" "Yes," Sophia answered firmly. "This is our home now, all of us together." The girl nodded slowly. "I think Mama and Papa would be happy we're with you and Mr. Miller." "He's kind." "Yes, he is," Sophia agreed, watching Vincent's patient instruction as Thomas struggled with the knife. "Very kind indeed." Sunday dawned clear and bright. Mrs. Patel and Martha Wilson arrived early to help Sophia prepare. The simple dress they had created was more beautiful than Sophia had dared hope. Cream-colored cotton with delicate embroidery at the collar and cuffs. "Something borrowed," Martha said, pinning a small cameo brooch to the collar. "From my mother." Mrs. Patel presented a crown of wildflowers. "For your hair. My daughter gathered them this morning." The children were equally transformed in their new clothes. Mary wore a blue dress that brought out her eyes, while Emma twirled in her yellow pinafore. Thomas looked uncomfortable but proud in his new shirt and pants, his hair slicked down with water. "You all look wonderful," Sophia told them, fighting tears. When Vincent knocked on the bedroom door, Martha answered it with a stern expression. "No seeing the bride before the ceremony, Mr. Miller." "Wouldn't dream of it, madam," came his reply, amusement evident in his voice. "Just checking if you need anything brought to town." "We'll be ready to leave in 20 minutes, Mrs. Patel called. "The wagon is prepared, all set." "I'll wait outside." The small church was filled beyond capacity when they arrived. It seemed the entire population of Los Alamos had turned out for the event. Sophia felt a moment of panic at the number of unfamiliar faces, but then Vincent was there, looking more handsome than she'd yet seen him in a clean white shirt and dark pants, his usually unruly hair combed neatly. "Ready?" he asked softly. She nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. The ceremony itself was simple and brief. Reverend Carson spoke of commitment, community, and building a life together. When he mentioned the children by name, blessing their new family, Sophia saw tears in Mary's eyes and reached out to squeeze her hand. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the Reverend concluded. "Vincent, you may kiss your bride." Their first kiss was gentle, almost hesitant a promise rather than a passion. But when Vincent drew back, the look in his eyes told Sophia all she needed to know about his feelings. The celebration afterward was more boisterous than she had anticipated. Tables had been set up outside the church, laden with food contributed by various townspeople. Sheriff Davis played his fiddle while others joined in with guitars and harmonicas. Children ran and played, Thomas and Emma quickly joining their new friends. "Mrs. Miller," a deep voice said beside her. Vincent offered a cup of punch, his expression almost shy. Still sounds strange, a bit, she admitted, but nice. He nodded toward where Mary stood talking with another girl about her age. She's making friends already, they all are, it's wonderful to see. Vincent took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against hers. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For saying yes, for bringing those children here, for filling my house. The sincerity in his voice made her throat tight. Thank you for wanting us. As the afternoon wore on, Sophia found herself welcomed by one neighbor after another. Martha Wilson introduced her to Abigail Davis, the sheriff's wife, who immediately expressed interest in Sophia's teaching experience. We've been hoping for a proper teacher for ages, Abigail explained. I've been doing what I can with the children, but I never had formal training. I'd be happy to help, Sophia replied. Perhaps we could work together. By the time they prepared to return to the ranch, Sophia had tentative plans to begin classes twice weekly, using the small building next to the church as Vincent had suggested. The ride home was quiet, the children exhausted from the excitement. Emma fell asleep against Vincent's side while Thomas and Mary dozed in the back of the wagon. They've had quite a day, Sophia remarked softly. We all have, Vincent replied. His free arm, the one not supporting Emma, moved to rest lightly around Sophia's shoulders, but a good one. That night, after settling the children in the loft, Sophia stood awkwardly in the main room, suddenly shy about entering what was now their shared bedroom. Vincent seemed to understand her hesitation. I know this is unusual, he said quietly. We can take things slow. Just because we're married on paper doesn't mean no, she interrupted, finding her courage. We're married in truth now, Vincent. I may have come here as part of an arrangement, but today I chose you, we chose each other. She stepped closer to him. I don't want to pretend otherwise. Relief washed over his features. He reached out, gently cupping her face. I've never been good with words, Sophia, but I want you to know having you and those children here, it's already more than I dared hope for. Whatever happens between us, I'll be a good husband to you and a father to them. That's my promise. When he kissed her this time, it held none of the restraint from the church. Sophia felt herself respond with a passion she hadn't known she possessed, years of loneliness and uncertainty melting away in the warmth of his embrace. Later, as they lay together in the darkness, Vincent's arm protective around her waist, Sophia realized she was truly home for the first time since her parents' death. This unlikely family, 3 orphaned children, a lonely cowboy, and herself had somehow found each other against impossible odds. Vincent, she whispered, unsure if he was still awake. I think I could be happy here with you. His arm tightened around her. That's all I want, he murmured, for all of you to be happy here. As autumn settled over the ranch, their days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Twice weekly, Sophia took the children to town for school lessons, where she was joined by 8 other children from the surrounding area. The small schoolhouse, as Vincent called it, quickly became a center of community activity. Vincent proved to be a patient teacher himself, showing Thomas how to care for the animals and Mary how to ride the gentle old gelding. Even Emma found her place, helping to gather eggs and talking endlessly to the chickens, who seemed to appreciate her attention. She's named all of them, Vincent told Sophia one evening, amusement crinkling the corners of his eyes. That speckled hen is apparently Duchess now. I hope you're not getting attached, Sophia replied with a raised eyebrow. Considering their eventual fate, Vincent looked sheepish. About that, I may have told Emma that the chickens are just for eggs, might need to bring in some separate birds for eating, Sophia laughed. You're getting soft, cowboy, guilty, he admitted, pulling her into his arms. These casual displays of affection had become more frequent as the weeks passed, their initial awkwardness giving way to genuine warmth and growing attraction. The first real test of their new family came in late October, when Thomas fell ill with a high fever. For 3 days and nights, Sophia and Vincent took turns sitting with the boy, applying cool cloths to his forehead and coaxing sips of water past his parched lips. Should we send for the doctor from Santa Fe? Sophia asked on the second night, fear making her voice tremble. Vincent looked equally concerned. If he's not better by morning, I'll ride out at first light. They sat together beside Thomas's bed, the other children finally asleep after hours of worried vigilance. "I can't lose him," Sophia whispered. "Not after everything they've been through." Vincent took her hand. "We won't lose him, he's strong, and he has something to live for now." As if hearing their conversation, Thomas stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Pa," he murmured, his voice weak but clear. Vincent froze, then leaned forward quickly. "I'm here, son, right here." "Thirsty," the boy whispered. While Vincent helped him drink, Sophia felt tears of relief slide down her cheeks. It was the first time any of the children had called Vincent Pa, and the look of fierce protection on her husband's face told her everything about how deeply he had come to care for these children who had arrived so unexpectedly in his life. By morning, Thomas's fever had broken. When the doctor finally arrived, having been fetched by a neighbor Vincent had encountered on the road, he pronounced the boy on the mend. "Just a bad influenza, not scarlet fever," he assured them. "Keep him warm and fed, and he'll be right as rain in a few days." That night, with Thomas safely recovering and the other children finally sleeping peacefully, Sophia found Vincent sitting alone on the porch, staring up at the star-filled sky. "He called me Pa," Vincent said without turning as she settled beside him. "Yes, he did." She took his hand. "Does that surprise you?" "Terrifies me," he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "What if I can't be what they need? My own Pa wasn't exactly a shining example." Sophia squeezed his fingers. "You already are what they need, what we all need." He turned to face her then, the moonlight revealing the vulnerability in his expression. "When Thomas was so sick, I realized how much they've come to matter to me, all of you. If anything happened—" "Nothing happened," she reminded him gently. "We got through it together." Vincent nodded slowly. "Together," he repeated as if testing the word. "Not used to that, been handling everything alone for so long." "Not anymore," Sophia promised, leaning her head against his shoulder. As winter approached, the ranch prepared for the harsher weather. Vincent spent long days ensuring the barn was secure and the woodpile ample. Sophia preserved the last of the garden's bounty and worked with Martha Wilson to learn the skills she'd need to keep her family fed through the colder months. The children thrived despite the increasingly confined quarters as outdoor activities became limited by snow and cold. Vincent taught them card games and checkers, while Sophia read aloud each evening from the small collection of books they'd accumulated. Their first Christmas as a family brought unexpected joy. Vincent disappeared for a full day, returning with a small pine tree that he helped the children decorate with paper chains and carved wooden ornaments he'd secretly prepared. "I've never had a Christmas tree," he confessed to Sophia as they watched the children's excitement. "Never seemed worth the trouble just for myself." Sophia kissed him softly. "Well, now you have a reason." On Christmas morning, each child found a carefully crafted gift: a doll for Emma, a carved horse for Thomas, and a journal with a beautiful leather cover for Mary. Vincent presented Sophia with a silver locket containing tiny portraits of all three children, which he'd commissioned from a traveling artist who'd passed through Los Alamos in November. "Vincent," she breathed, touching the precious gift. "It's beautiful." "Open your gift to me now," he urged, looking boyishly eager. She handed him the carefully wrapped package, suddenly nervous about her offering. Inside was a knitted scarf, her first attempt at the craft under Martha's tutelage, and a small folded paper. Vincent examined the scarf with genuine appreciation, then opened the paper. His expression shifted from curiosity to shock. "Sophia," he whispered, looking up at her with wide eyes. She nodded, her hand moving unconsciously to her stomach. "In June, the doctor thinks." "I wasn't certain until last week." The children, distracted by their own gifts, hadn't noticed the exchange. Vincent moved to kneel before Sophia, placing a gentle hand over hers. "A baby," he said wonderingly. "Our baby. Are you pleased?" she asked, suddenly uncertain. His answer was to pull her into a fierce embrace. "More than I can say," he murmured against her hair. Later, when they shared the news with the children, the reactions were mixed. Emma was delighted at the prospect of a baby to help care for. Thomas had practical questions about where the baby would sleep and whether it would cry all night like the blacksmith's new son. Mary, however, grew quiet. That evening, as Sophia was preparing for bed, a soft knock came at the bedroom door. "Mary, is everything all right?" she asked, finding the girl standing there in her nightgown. "Can I ask you something?" Mary's voice was small. "Of course, sweetheart." Sophia led her to sit on the bed. "What is it?" "The new baby, it'll be yours and Mr. Miller's real child," Mary said hesitantly. Will you still want us?" Sophia's heart clenched. "Oh, Mary," she pulled the girl close. "Listen to me very carefully. You, Thomas, and Emma are every bit as much our children as this baby will be. Nothing will ever change that." "But no buts," Sophia said firmly. "Family isn't about blood. It's about love, and we love you three with all our hearts." From the doorway came Vincent's deep voice. "Your ma's right." He crossed to sit on Mary's other side. "When you all arrived, I told Sophia my house needed filling. That wasn't just about the empty rooms. It was about the emptiness in here." He touched his chest. "You three filled places in my heart I didn't even know were hollow." Mary's eyes welled with tears. "Really, really," Vincent confirmed. "This baby doesn't replace anyone. It just means our family keeps growing exactly as it should." As winter gave way to spring, Sophia's condition became more pronounced. The women of Los Alamos rallied around her, sharing advice and helping with preparations for the new arrival. Vincent worked tirelessly to convert part of their bedroom into a nursery space, building a cradle from cottonwood with his own hands. "You're nesting worse than I am," Sophia teased him one evening as he fussed over the cradle's rockers. "Want it to be perfect," he muttered, not denying the accusation. The children were equally invested in the preparations. Mary took on more responsibility, helping Sophia with household tasks when her increasing size made them difficult. Thomas appointed himself special protector, insisting on carrying anything heavier than a dinner plate. Even little Emma contributed, creating colorful drawings to decorate the nursery area. One warm May evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Vincent brought up something that had clearly been on his mind. "Been thinking," he began, his hand resting protectively on Sophia's rounded belly. "House is getting crowded." "It is," she agreed, wondering where he was going with this. "Thought I might build on another room, maybe two." He glanced at her. "What would you think about extending off the back? Could give the boys one room, the girls another as they get older." Sophia felt a surge of love for this man who was always planning for their family's future. "I think that sounds wonderful." "Good," he nodded decisively. "I'll start cutting timber next week." The baby arrived in early June, earlier than expected but healthy and strong-lunged. After a labor that left Sophia exhausted but triumphant, they welcomed Samuel James Miller into the world, named for Sophia's father and James Monroe, whose children they were raising as their own. "He's perfect," Vincent whispered, holding his son with a mixture of awe and terror on his weathered face. "He is," Sophia agreed, watching her husband transform once again before her eyes. The reserved, solitary man she had met a year ago was now openly emotional, his love for his growing family written clearly on his features. When the children were allowed in to meet their new brother, their reactions were everything Sophia had hoped for. Mary approached cautiously, her expression softening as Samuel wrapped his tiny fingers around hers. Thomas examined the baby with scientific curiosity, declaring him smaller than a new calf but louder. Emma simply climbed onto the bed beside Sophia and announced, "I'm going to teach him everything." "I'm sure you will, sweetheart," Vincent told her, his voice rough with emotion as he surveyed his complete family. That night, with Samuel sleeping in his cradle and the other children finally settled after the excitement, Vincent sat beside Sophia on their bed, taking her hand in his. "Thank you," he said simply, "for Samuel, for everything." He met her eyes, and she saw in them all the words he struggled to express. "For answering my letter, for bringing those children here, for seeing something in me worth taking a chance on." Sophia squeezed his hand. "I should be thanking you. When I arrived with 3 orphans in tow, most men would have sent me right back on the next stage coach." Vincent shook his head. "No decent man would have. Perhaps, but you didn't just accept us, you embraced us, made us truly welcome." She leaned against him. "Do you remember what you said that first day?" "Said a lot of things, most of them awkward," he replied with a self-deprecating smile. You said your house needed filling. She looked around at their home now full of children's belongings, books, toys, and all the evidence of a life richly lived. I'd say we've managed that quite thoroughly. Vincent's laugh was soft. Indeed we have, and I wouldn't have it any other way. As Samuel grew from infant to toddler, the ranch prospered along with the family. Vincent's careful management had increased his herd, and the additional rooms he built onto the house gave everyone the space they needed. Sophia's school in town had become an established institution, with Abigail Davis taking over on the days when Sophia needed to be home with Samuel. Mary, now 12, showed a remarkable aptitude for numbers and helped Vincent keep the ranch accounts. Thomas at 10 was already a competent rider and knew every animal on the property by sight. 7-year-old Emma had appointed herself Samuel's personal guardian and entertainer, a role she took very seriously. On the anniversary of their wedding, Vincent surprised Sophia by arranging for Martha Wilson to watch the children for an evening. He took her on horseback to a spot overlooking the ranch where he'd prepared a picnic supper. "It's beautiful," Sophia said, looking out over the land that had become her home. In the distance, their house stood solid and welcoming, smoke curling from the chimney. "I can hardly believe it's been 2 years since I arrived. Best 2 years of my life," Vincent said, settling beside her on the blanket he'd spread. "Though I still remember how terrified I was when that stagecoach pulled in and you stepped down with 3 children." Sophia laughed. "And I remember thinking you looked too stern to possibly accept us." "Never stood a chance," he admitted, pulling her close. "The moment I saw you standing there so brave and determined, I knew my life was about to change for the better." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, enjoying the rare moment of solitude. Finally, Vincent cleared his throat. "Got something to ask you," he said, suddenly looking nervous. "What is it?" He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "Meant to give you this on our wedding day, but didn't have the chance to get it made in time." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold ring with a small pearl set in the center. Proper wedding ring. Better late than never, tears sprang to Sophia's eyes. Their hasty wedding had not included rings, a detail that had never seemed important until this moment. "It's beautiful," she whispered as he slipped it onto her finger, alongside the plain band they'd purchased in Los Alamos. "Had it made in Santa Fe last month," he explained. "The pearl reminded me of you, something precious formed from life's challenges." Sophia kissed him, marveling at how this supposedly unpoetic man could sometimes find words that touched her so deeply. "I love you, Vincent Miller," she said against his lips. "More than I ever thought possible when I answered your advertisement." He smiled, the expression transforming his face in the way she had come to cherish. "And I love you, Sophia Miller. You and our children, all 4 of them, are the greatest blessing I never dared hope for." As they rode back to the ranch in the gathering dusk, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought them here. What had begun as a practical arrangement between strangers had blossomed into a deep and abiding love. The lonely cowboy and the desperate teacher had found not just companionship, but true partnership, creating a family and a home filled with more love than either had imagined possible. When they reached the house, lights glowed warmly in the windows. From inside came the sound of children's laughter and Martha Wilson's cheerful voice. Vincent helped Sophia down from her horse, then surprised her by lifting her into his arms. "What are you doing?" she laughed as he carried her toward the porch. "Carrying my bride over the threshold," he replied with a grin. 2 years late, but I'm a determined man." As he shouldered open the door to the welcoming chaos of their family home, Sophia knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The mail-order arrangement that had brought her west had given her something no letter could have promised. A love story written not on paper but in the shared moments of their daily lives, in the home they had built together, and in the family that filled it with joy. When Vincent set her down inside, the children rushed to greet them, Samuel trotting unsteadily in Emma's wake. As they gathered their family close, exchanging stories of their brief separation, Sophia caught Vincent's eye over the children's heads. His expression held all the words they no longer needed to say: gratitude, wonder, and the abiding love of a man whose lonely house had become a home filled with laughter, challenges, and the enduring warmth of family. 5 years later, the Miller Ranch had expanded considerably. Vincent's careful management and Sophia's practical sense had allowed them to purchase adjacent land, increasing their herd and their prosperity. The house had grown too, with a proper second story replacing the old loft, giving each child their own space while leaving room for Samuel and his younger sister Elizabeth, who had arrived 2 years after her brother. On a bright spring morning, as Sophia stood on the porch watching Vincent teaching 7-year-old Samuel to rope a practice post, she felt a familiar contentment wash over her. Mary, now 17 and planning to attend Teachers College in Denver the following year, sat nearby sketching the scene. Thomas, 15 and already as tall as Vincent, was working with the horses in the corral, while 12-year-old Emma supervised Elizabeth's attempts to feed the chickens without being pecked. The stagecoach that had brought Sophia and 3 orphan children to Los Alamos all those years ago now made regular runs through the growing town. Occasionally, it brought letters from Philadelphia, where Sophia maintained correspondence with former colleagues. More often, it brought new settlers, some of whom had read about the successful ranches and opportunities in the territory. As the family gathered for supper that evening, all 8 of them around the large table Vincent had built when the original became too small, Sophia looked at the faces of her children and her husband. Mary, thoughtful and ambitious; Thomas, practical and steady; Emma, spirited and nurturing; Samuel, curious and bold; little Elizabeth, sweet-natured and determined. And Vincent, her partner, her love, the man who had opened his home and heart to a ready-made family and never looked back. "What are you thinking about, Ma?" Mary asked, noticing Sophia's contemplative expression. "Just how fortunate we all are," Sophia replied with a smile. Vincent reached across the table to take her hand, the simple gesture communicating volumes between them. "Indeed we are," he agreed, his voice deep with emotion. "More fortunate than I ever dreamed possible when I sent away for a bride and ended up with a family." Outside, the New Mexico sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and reds, illuminating the ranch that had become so much more than a place to live. It was the physical manifestation of a love that had grown from the most unlikely of beginnings, a love that had filled empty rooms with laughter, transformed strangers into family, and created a legacy that would endure long after the last light faded from the western sky.